Let's recap Thursday Night Football next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Adam Azer and Adam. I've got 3 questions for you about the Browns' 37-20 win over the New York Jets. And really, they're 3 Joe Flacco questions because Joe Flacco, he had an awesome half. I think he had 15 passing yards in the second half, but that was because the Browns didn't need to do anything in the second half because he had 3 touchdowns in the first half. And the first question that Joe Flacco's performance today and in the month of December with 13 passing touchdowns in, I think, 5 games. Extremely Robin Williams in Jumanji voice. What year is it? My second question. What does the fact that the Browns have been able to get this kind of performance out of Joe Flacco, what does that say about the Jets and how bad he looked last season? And do we have reason to believe that this Jets coaching staff can figure things out, given that there's been such a dramatic difference between not just how Joe Flacco has played with the Browns, but what teams like the Vikings have gotten out of backup quarterbacks, and the Jets have just gotten putrid play from their quarterbacks. I just struggle to find reason to be optimistic about this team next season, even if Aaron Rodgers is back.
I think you could be optimistic about Breece Hall. I think you'd be optimistic about Hall and Garrett Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Rodgers would be good for him. I mean, these guys were good enough on such bad teams. But the other thing about the Browns is, like, they just keep losing offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they don't even have that going for them anymore. I'm not sure that I necessarily would connect the two. That Flacco is bad with the Jets, good with the Browns. That's an indictment of the Jets. I don't know. There's a lot of play there. I don't have a lot of faith in Nathaniel Hackett necessarily, but it's really about Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers likes Hackett, then that's fine. Am I going to have faith in them next year? Yeah, I think I will. They're going to have one of those offenses that's totally concentrated for 2 players, basically, I think.
I'll just say I think it's probably like a top 15 offense if Rodgers is fine. And that'll probably be enough for Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall to be superstars because they're going to, like you said, be concentrated. But I don't think this is going to be like a great offense. I've seen too little from them, even with bad QB play, to have any faith that this team. The other question, though, what does this tell us about Deshaun Watson, if anything? That he's looked so much worse than an 87-year-old Joe Flacco.
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I wish that he had gotten to play more. I felt like he was getting a little bit better, maybe making some progress. But yeah, I think it's alarming for him to play so poorly last year when he came back, and I ignored it, didn't care at all. But to play so poorly in the preseason, and I wish I'd paid more attention to that, and then to play so poorly. I don't know.
He had that one good second half against the Ravens.
Yeah. I just have a hard time believing at his age, he was so elite. I have a hard time believing that he can't be a great quarterback again, but I'm certainly not going to draft him that way. He's going to be maybe around QB 15 or something like that next year, just off the top of my head, because people will still acknowledge there are some previous upside, kind of like a Russell Wilson this year. And we'll just see if he's Russell Wilson or if he can go back to being Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it'll be fine to take a late round flyer on him, but if it's, QB 12 or whatever, I'm probably going to be out at this point. Let's move on to some of the injuries heading into the weekend that we need to talk about. Trevor Lawrence did not practice on Thursday. They have not ruled him out. At this point, it feels like he's not going to play, though, and that's probably for the best, given all the injuries he's played through. CJ Stroud did clear the concussion protocol officially on Thursday, so barring a Michael Pittman-esque setback, which, given the time that he's had off, I don't expect, CJ Stroud should be back, top 12 QB right away.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have my FanDuel lineup is Stroud and Nico Collins. I love both of them. I think they're going to be great.
All right, and then Kyler Murray has missed 2 days of practice so far with an illness. Generally speaking, we don't worry too much about an illness, especially in the middle of the week. But the fact that it's been 2 days, we'll just note it here. Kyler Murray would be a top 12 QB for me if he plays. I do have him ahead of Tua Tagovailoa to name one, but a little concerning that he's missed 2 days. We've also had Isaiah Pacheco hasn't practiced due to his concussion. I don't expect him to play. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire missed Thursday's practice with an illness. That's one that we assume he'll be able to play. Would you have any interest in LaMichael Pirine if Clyde Edwards-Helaire's out?
Yeah, I mean, in a RB3 sort of way. You've seen crazier things happen, right? But you get a guy thrust into the starting role for the Chiefs. The problem is you can't even speculate on what the splits would be in the backfield. So if Clyde were out and Pacheco were out, obviously McKinnon's going to be out. So it'd be very, very little interest. But if I were stuck, sure.
All right. Jamar Chase did get a limited practice in on Thursday. He spoke with the media. That usually means that a player's going to play, but don't assume that he's going to play. Make sure you have alternatives ready. If Jamar Chase does play through this shoulder injury, are you starting him this week?
So I think that L'Jarius Sneed's injury is equally as important here, honestly. I mean, he's been the best corner in football, in my opinion, when it comes to shutting down number one receivers. It's just in terms of fantasy, you just don't see it from any other team the way you consistently see it from the Chiefs. But he has missed both practices to start this week. So that would really help Jamar Chase. But I don't think he's a must start. He hasn't been a must start. He's had basically one great game with Jake Browning. And he's struggled. He hasn't really gotten that many targets from Browning. So I think he'd be somewhere in the wide receiver 15 to 20 range. Not a total must start, but a probable start.
All right, we had Jordan Addison get up to a limited practice, as did Jaden Reed. Those are good signs. Have a chance to play. They're in wide receiver 3.
Much more interested in Reed than Addison.
That's fair. Jaron Hall is going to start for the Vikings this week. 5th round, 25-year-old 5th round rookie. Don't have a ton of interest there. Cole Kmet hasn't practiced this week with his knee injury. That's a pretty big deal if you've been relying on him. He's been a pretty solid contributor all season, and looks like there's a pretty decent chance he's not going to play. Unfortunately, there just aren't a lot of options out there. Hunter Henry has gotten up to a limited practice with his knee injury. He has 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Mike Gesicki scored last week, so they're clearly prioritizing the targets there in New England for the tight end. So that's something to keep in mind if you need a replacement, but not a lot of good tight end options out there on waivers for Week 16. And that's going to do it for FFT and 5. We'll see you tomorrow.